Welcome to the Big Dawg Crypto Podcast. This is your number one crypto podcast to hear directly from the movers and shakers, innovators, and disruptors in the cryptocurrency industry. Follow on Twitter for updates and to communicate directly at Woof Big Dawg. That's at Woof Big DAWG. Now, here is your host, the one and only Big Dawg Crypto.
And welcome to the latest episode of the Big Dawg Crypto Podcast. I'm your host, Big Dawg Crypto. Castillo Trading, how are you doing?
I'm doing fantastic, my man. Thanks for having me. I appreciate it.
Man, I appreciate you coming on. So I have enjoyed your account. You have a lot of solid content on there. And right now, one of the things people want to know, especially new people in the space, is what is going on with Bitcoin. I want to ask you, let's get right into it. It's been some interesting times lately. We're now at the first week of April. What is your opinion right now of what you're seeing in the markets, in particular to Bitcoin?
Yeah, I think we're kind of in a, not like a scary position, but we're just in a position of uncertainty, where Bitcoin's going, where the economy is going, where regulation is going. I think that right now, kind of getting into that 30K resistance is going to be a key level for Bitcoin on if we reject, if we can push past. As of right now, I'm not sure. I think everybody is pretty on the same page that we are at a resistance level. So I think it just depends. There's a lot of news related, stories that have come out recently that have kind of manipulated the market a little bit. But at the end of the day, I really do think that buying sub 20K, around that 15, 16, 17K is, some decent generational entries on Bitcoin. Does that mean that we can't have, some downside in the short term? No, there's always potential for downside. I don't think it's going to be as significant as what people want. I know a lot of people are still kind of wanting that 10K, that 12K Bitcoin, but the reality is there's been so much that has been going on with Bitcoin that we're still trading at 28,000. I think with all the FUD that has happened with Binance and CZ, FTX, Three Arrows Capital, Celsius, just so much has happened within the course of a year, 9 months, something like that. And we're still trading at a decent level. So it's hard to kind of navigate at this point. I was very heavy on the buys, kind of in that 20,000 area, that 17, 16. And as we kind of start to push up, it is starting to just be that level of uncertainty to where it's probably a good idea to, take some profits off if you were buying lower, maybe hedge a little bit in this area. But I think overall, Bitcoin's at a pretty decent area considering what has happened to it the past 6 months.
Well, and that brings into something interesting to me, is that when you look at the markets and stuff, and you've been in the space a while, back in the day, China bans Bitcoin, this happens, whatever, it drops 30, 40, 50%, whatever it was. And it seems like now, and look, the FTX thing was absolutely horrible. There was nothing good about it whatsoever. I'm just saying I was surprised to see that. I think we overall, when we were starting to go up, right, dropped about 20%, I believe, somewhere in that range, and then kind of came back. And I guess the thing is, since then, we've had, the CFTC after Binance, and then the thing that happened, we'll talk about that maybe next, but yesterday, are you surprised to see it not going down like it used to? You know what I mean?
It's tough. Bitcoin's resilient. And the one thing that I will say to anybody that's wanting to learn is Bitcoin likes to run a lot harder than people thinks. And also it likes to drop a lot farther than people think as well. So just when you don't think Bitcoin has the legs to go any higher or to go any lower, it normally does. And we are kind of just in that situation. Like I said, just that uncertainty of, what is going to happen with the markets. But I just think that within crypto, like we kind of just talked about, there's so many events happening, the regulation, a lot of stuff needs to kind of clear up. And I think that it will. I think that it's just time, right? It just needs, the government needs time. Bitcoin needs time. I always like to say that Powell is kind of elongating the markets, right? I like to say that he doesn't want the markets to go up. He doesn't want them to go down. He just wants to elongate them and make them a very choppy environment to kind of fix some of the stuff that's kind of going on with the economy and inflation. We'll just kind of have to see how things go for the future as far as, crypto. Because I think that's one thing that everybody does kind of have to understand is regulation is coming, whether we want it to or not. Everybody likes to talk about decentralization. There's the whole conspiracy theories of people wanting to take down CZ because he's such a huge figure, with Binance just being such a powerhouse of crypto. We'll just kind of have to see how it unfolds. I'm ready for it, right? Like I'm a trader. I'm ready for the volatility. I'm ready to trade the downside. I'm ready to trade the upside. I'm ready to have my popcorn to see how some of these headlines play out. This is what I love about markets. This is why I enjoy what being a trader is, being an investor is. You get to look at these headlines and you kind of get to capitalize on them, whether it be short or long. And, I think going into just anything with markets is you have to have an unbiased mindset, considering the short side and considering the long side. And that's hard to grasp for certain people, but it really is the key to kind of figuring out your trading style.
When speaking of that, talking about the events of the other day or yesterday, and I get a message, somebody says Interpool's out about to arrest CZ. I said, oh God, what's going on? So you go on into Twitter, crypto Twitter, Bitcoin Twitter, what do you want to call it? And next thing you know, you're seeing all this stuff. And then the image was at Photoshop. We've gotten to the point now where, news, and it's always, I guess, been like this to some extent, but particularly, and I always said, like, we have a community. It's not a BS thing. It's like people have other social medias, right? When you go into Twitter and particularly talking about crypto and Bitcoin in our community, like we're kind of like all on the same page, right? It's a certain area you go into that you don't get anywhere else. And automatically, like, what's going on? Oh, he's being arrested. It's like, oh, come on. Like, is this accurate? What were your thoughts on all that? And specifically, those are the kind of things now that are moving the markets more than they were? Or do you think this is just an evolution of the direction we've been going in?
Yeah, I don't know. That's such a great question. There's so many different contexts to answer that, where the market's going, how you want to trade it. Do you want to focus on these headlines? Do you think that they're FUD and you want to ignore them? There's so much that you can do, and there's so many different ways to trade it, which again is what I love about markets and technical analysis. But, I just think that the market is still a little oversensitive to these news headlines. I still think people have a lot of PTSD when it comes to exchanges, because of FTX. I really think so many people got hurt on that it was just one of those things that it just kind of cripples the entire, like you were saying, the kind of community for a while, the niche community that we have. Crypto Twitter is a crazy place. I love it and I hate it at the same time. But you just kind of have to roll with the punches. These headlines are something that I don't think you should pay too much attention to. I was talking to my Telegram group yesterday and kind of sending them what was going on, and I was like, I don't know if this is just, how it's kind of like buy the rumor, sell the news, and like when FUD kind of happens, it's really a good buying time. I kind of thought it was going to be something along those lines. Now, did I think that it was going to be a completely rumored encrypted message that was kind of going on? No, I had no idea. I didn't really know what was happening. I know I saw a lot of noise being tripped around on Twitter with CZ, and he's holding up his number 4, and a lot of people are kind of taking that into a little bit of a subliminal message and trying to figure it out. But at the end of the day, I still think that technicals will hold true. Yesterday when we were kind of having the drop and stuff, there were some support levels that we were looking at on some of the low-term timeframes and the medium timeframes that were offering good buy areas. So as much as, a lot of people can kind of blame FUD, or they can blame these headlines or blame these news reports that are false, the reality is you're your own trader. I don't think that you should pay too much attention to them, but you have to know what's going on, right? Like, you have to know that the market is as sensitive as it is to these types of news articles, whether they're rumored or not. It's still a very sensitive environment to be careful of. So you don't want to, you don't want to FOMO long, FOMO short, anything like that. You still want to just have, your setups, your scenarios, and then just kind of have patience for those to play out regardless of the headlines, regardless of the news.
So in that direction, obviously I'm very grateful that there's a lot of new people that will watch the podcast or listen to it, and I get these messages sometimes too. When it comes to technical analysis, somebody wants to learn about it. What would you tell somebody how to learn about it? The best ways to go about it, right? How would you tell them to do it?
Yeah, well, I don't really know if I can tell people how to do it, but I can share the experience on how I did it. Okay. I think for me is that learning is key. Knowledge is key, and everybody wants to get into a market and start trading right away. Right. And my approach was completely opposite. I had a funded account of around $10,000, but instead of starting to trade right away, what I did was I started educating myself. And again, this was before crypto. This was into, more penny stocks, traditional stocks, that sort of thing was where I learned how to trade and my love for trading. I was against crypto for a long time and I was very, very set on trading penny stocks, but I was educated. I got educated on what all of this meant, what the level 2 meant, what indicators meant, RSI, how to construct, a thesis based off of, volume inflow, whatever it is. There's a million strategies out there. But I took 4 trading courses before I even took my first trade. So I was studying and learning for about a year and a half before I ever opened up my brokerage account and opened up a position. And I think that needs to be the mindset of somebody, coming in new. Yes, everybody wants to make money right away, but the reality is, I was very real and understanding with the situation is that not many traders make it. You have to understand that I think, what do they say? 95% of traders fail, 5% make it, whatever it is. So with knowing some of that knowledge, I had to kind of just make sure that I was comfortable with what I was doing. I knew that trading was risky, that you could lose $10,000 within a day, within minutes, within seconds, depending on what you're trying to do. So I always just made sure that I was educated in what I was doing before doing it. So, I took, and I don't know if you know any of these people, but I consider some of these guys my mentors, but I took Tim Sykes' trading course. And this was back in like 2014. I also did Cameron Foos 4 Trading was another course I did. I did Kunal, Bulls of Wall Street. And then I also did Investors Underground with Nathan Mashad. So I learned so many styles and techniques for trading before I constructed my own ways of trading. And I think that is just so key. And again, I probably spent more money on some of these courses than I should have, because a lot of content out there is free on, Telegram, Discord, YouTube. You just kind of have to search for it. But I'm very thankful for the way that I went and the route that I went, because it got me to where I am today. And it's been like 9-10 years since I first initially started. I wasn't a full-time trader the whole time, but I just think it's very key that people educate themselves first before jumping into any sort of trade. And I will just use that as that was kind of my experience. And so I kind of just want to pass that down to somebody new that kind of wants to, do the same thing. It's not going to happen right away. There's people that get lucky when it comes to trading and they can make $1 million in a couple of weeks. But the reality is that that doesn't happen very often.
Right. Did you have, going back like when you were a kid and stuff, were you fascinated or into markets or stuff like that? Was it something that just came about later?
Way later. Absolutely not. The route that I kind of took was I was sports. I played basketball and baseball my entire life into, high school, throughout high school. And then I went to college and I started studying chemistry and biology. And then as I was kind of learning the real world, right? 21, 22, 23 years old, I just kind of realized that the 9-to-5 job wasn't what I wanted to do with my life. I wanted to find something that I loved every single day and that I can get up for and be excited for. And that was trading. I had kind of done a few things. My dad was big into real estate in New Mexico. And so he was always encouraging me to want to do some sort of markets, whether it was financial markets or real estate markets. I was never interested in real estate because I saw kind of how difficult it can be. But, as soon as I started, I love playing video games too. And that's kind of the way that I interpret what I'm doing with trading is it's just a big fun video game with money.
Makes sense. Yeah.
So yeah, it did come later. But like I said, it's something that I was always interested in. I knew, basics of the stock market before you get in. You want to buy low, sell high, make a lot of money. You know about IPOs getting listed and people making money off IPOs, that sort of thing. But yeah, it came later in my life, and once I really dove into it, like I said, taking those 4 courses just made me love everything so much more. Even through the pain, right? Even through the losses, it's just something
that's where you learn a lot.
Yeah, right. You learn to appreciate, the losses and appreciate learning from them as well. And, anybody getting into this game thinking that they're not going to take a big hit at one point is just kind of lying to themselves. You got to pay your market tuition, whether it be a bonehead. Yeah, market tuition. That was one thing my mentors, my penny stock mentors would always tell me, like, look, you're going to have to pay your market tuition at some point, and you can't let it, you can't let it crush you. You can't let it take out your whole portfolio. Even if it does, there's ways to kind of step back and reevaluate what is going on, maybe look to see what you did wrong and kind of tweak it from there.
It's an expensive education, but it's
And something too that always catches me is like trial and error, right? Taking a trade and it not going in your way. Well, what went wrong? I love going back and being like, okay, well, I could have looked at maybe this indicator. I could have looked at the volume inflow, or, when it came to penny stocks, low flow penny stocks were always the jazz, the momentum plays, that sort of thing. So I love kind of that trial and error and seeking, what I can do better for next time.
So if somebody is trading and let's say they're doing it, they're into a day trade, what indicators, or let me say, what candles do you look at? Are there certain time frames? Let's say somebody's trading on a 6-hour period, right? They're going during the day, 6 hours. What candles would you tell them, or what advice could you maybe share they might want to look at while they're trading? And specifically,
again, great question. Coming out with all the great questions, man. I appreciate this.
Thanks, man. I appreciate that. Yeah. Because a lot of people want to know that, right? Like they want to day trade and they're trying here and there, and they got to learn whether they're going to do well. They might lose, but they got to try. What candles? And I've always wondered, what are the best ones for that?
Yeah, I mean, really, it really just depends. Again, it kind of goes back into finding yourself as a trader. If you have a 6-hour period, that's you can do some swing trades within there. You can do some scalps, but again, it's finding what works best for you. Scalp trading, those quick ins and outs may not work for a lot of people. It may give them too much anxiety. They might not want to, facilitate the trade, to watch the trade, to make sure, they know when to cut, that sort of thing. So it really just depends on the actual person. But for me, I've found that I don't like indicators that much. I think they're very helpful as far as confluence goes for your type of trading. But I've always thought, I've gone through the process of KISS, keep it simple, stupid. Right. And that's really all I focus on for the most part. Like I said, there's other indicators I use, other things, RSI divergences, but I don't look at them, very much. If you can identify basic support and resistance levels and just making sure you're not longing into resistance or shorting into support, I think that kind of offers the best way to go by it. Now, as far as time frames, there's 15-minute time frames, 30-minute time frames. My favorite is the 2 and the 4-hour time frames, because I think that they can offer a broader picture of what is going on. You can look at a 2 and a 4-hour time frame and just kind of know, okay, where we're sitting for, maybe the next 12 hours to, 24 hours, where the highs are, where the lows are, that sort of thing. But yeah, again, it just goes back to you kind of finding yourself as a trader, because, scalping with high leverage isn't going to be for everybody. But it also can be very good for some type of traders who kind of have that persona, that personality of being like a degenerate gambler, right? So it may work for some people, but it may not work for others. So again, it kind of goes into that experience, kind of back test what you're doing, making sure you're finding out and tracking all your trades to know what's working and what's not working. If you love indicators, then work with those indicators. I do have a strategy with parabolic SAR and what is it? Parabolic SAR and RSI, to where when they line up at times, again, it's just a percentage that is a little bit higher than 50% for me to want to take that trade. And it's just those sorts of things. When those things align up, you kind of know, you can look at other time frames for confluence, that sort of thing. But at the end of the day, you have to find yourself as a trader and what works best for you.
And when it comes to volume, and specifically, let's go back to the 6-hour time frame. Somebody's day trading for the 6 hours. When you look at volume on something, what does that tell you? And I know it's kind of just a general question, right? But let's just say somebody's going and they're trying to get it. They're trying to really actively make some money on whatever direction it's going in, and they got the 6 hours. Volume each hour, and what time frame does that not concern you? But which ones would you say to look at, right? The time frames and to look at in the volume and the price.
Yeah. I would say the 15-minute and the 30-minute. I think that those offer probably the best time frames in a 6-hour block, right? Like if you want to sit down for 6 hours and you have 6 hours to trade, I think 15-minute and the 30-minute probably offer some of the best time frames that you can look at within, just a quick 6-hour sit down session. A lot goes obviously into trades, a lot goes into entries, position size, so much. But I would say probably the 15-minute and the 30-minute. But there's a lot of people that would probably argue the 1 minute and the 5 minute to be like a more active scalper, right? But actively scalping, I think, is a lot harder when it comes to being profitable. I just think that it's a little bit more risky, so you have to have experience before kind of doing that. And I just don't think it's something that a new person should kind of get into. I always talk to some of my VIP members that it's not really about Like leverage is great. Leverage can be used in such a positive way, but it can also be used in such a negative way. And like for me, I just have it in the mind and the thought process of, okay, I don't need to take any leverage over 7 or 8x, because initially, like if you want to use 50x and 75 and 100x, there should be no reason to use that high of leverage, because you're telling me that I can take $10,000 and leverage it up 5x and basically have a position size of $50,000. Well, that's really all you need. You don't need to be taking 5,000 to 100x or
You're not doing
125x.
100x.
Yeah, like it's just kind of crazy to me. And so I think too that crypto is very numb to what normal trading is. Normal trading is, making 1,000 here, making 600 there a day, making 1,500 to 2,000, whatever it is. I just swear to God that crypto Twitter is so desensitized to what the reality of trading is. A lot of people want to see the big 50,000 figures in a day and 70,000 figures in a day, 100 figures. And, there are personas and people on crypto Twitter that do that and that put that information out there and stuff. But, for me, it just doesn't portray a realistic environment.
I mean, because it's not, people see that, they get excited, but, that's a bit of marketing to an extent. And we've seen it happen.
Absolutely. And so like, I just take the more realistic approach, right? If you can take $10,000 and make, 5 to 15%, 20% or whatever on the day, like you're doing fine. Just continue to work on tweaking on that model, and you'll hit a big winner someday, you'll lose someday, but it really truthfully is just kind of focusing on what works best for you. And I learned trading in traditional markets. I learned, trading penny stocks, trading blue chip stocks, that sort of thing. So I was never really desensitized to what true trading was. I kind of always knew that it was going to be a grind. If you're up $1,500 on the day, well, then take that. That's $1,500. Why would you want to try and get 6, 7, 8,000, 8,000 if you made $1,500 in a couple of minutes, 30 minutes, something like that. So I do think that the community is a little desensitized to what is true when it comes to trading.
And you're bringing up capital preservation. Basically, you're saying preserve your capital, which
Absolutely.
is a lot of people, unfortunately, look at the other way and say, well, you know what if I take this and I 10x? What if I 20? Of course, what if they go 0? And it happens all the time, right?
Yeah. It's kind of just taking a portfolio and building it, slowly. It doesn't always have to be fast. You don't always have to make, double what the portfolio is in a couple of days. There's a very, there's almost like a satisfaction when you take things slow and you kind of start to get that momentum rolling. You know what I'm saying? And so that's kind of the approach that I take to trading. I'm not too over the top. I really do preserve capital well. Position sizing is not extreme, but I'll throw some leverage on it to make it worthwhile.
Sure. Makes sense. So if you ever have if you have a Bitcoin, a long or short at night, Wade, do you enter them? Will you enter into a long and short with Bitcoin at night? And if so, can you go to sleep while doing that?
Yeah, absolutely. I think it's so funny, man, because so many people kind of freak out about that, right? Like they're just like, oh, I can't sleep tonight. I'm in this position. And it's like, well, then what are you doing? Like you're overexposed and you're not trading properly. If you are so stressed out that you cannot sleep based off of positions going on in the markets, you're doing it completely wrong. But I'll hold positions through the night, and mostly I really don't like stop losses because I think they get fished way too much. I can't tell you how many times my stop loss has been fished, but I will put a stop loss on if I'm going to bed or I am away from my computer, again, just to kind of preserve that capital, to manage that risk a little bit. But overall, if I'm sitting in front of my computer and I'm actively trading, I won't put a hard stop loss on, because there's certain things that I can see within like the level 2 and certain volume inflow, that sort of thing, that, maybe instead of cutting this position, I can add to this position, right? You know what I'm saying? And kind of change the game plan a little bit. But again, that just goes for what has been working for me. I just don't think that stop losses can really, really make your account bleed of 1,000 cuts, right? Like if you get stopped and you get stopped and you get stopped over and over and over again, like you can bleed your account from 1,000 cuts. And that's kind of the approach that I'm kind of taking away. I don't want that to happen to some of my traders. So realistically, when price starts to go against you, you need to be thinking opposite. You know what I'm saying? Like when price starts to drop, you need to understand that price is dropping to support, and we need to have a level head so that we can find an area to long. And when price is pumping and it's going higher, you keep a level head and you find areas of resistance that you can either short into, or you can kind of take profits from your longs lower, that sort of thing.
I agree with what you're saying. The fact what you're saying is very common sense, but very, when you talk about level-headed, that is capital preservation, right? And the sad fact is, I mean, the good fact is some people will listen to that, but there's a lot of people that are going to say, oh, well, that sounds good, but I think I know better, right? I can do that. I can be more aggressive. And I guess because what I would just share to the audience, once again, make your own decisions. But what you're saying, I agree with, because you're, without if you're trying to trade, you lose your capital, you can't do anything at all. So when people get excited about something, or they get, was it irrational exuberance, whatever the heck it's called, but I agree with you, keeping a level head is the best way, really the only way sometimes to do your best, because you can't guarantee anything, right? But you only do your best to preserve your capital.
Absolutely. Yeah. And then that kind of goes into people kind of taking positions that they, are afraid to go to sleep, that sort of thing. If you're ever, I actually hired a performance coach to kind of keep me in the right psyche during trading, you know what I'm saying? And I think that it's helped me immensely kind of keep that level head, to kind of know that I shouldn't be doing certain things. And like if you take a position sometimes and you just kind of get that feeling like, oh, I think I might have FOMO'd into this, or like, you have those senses within you and your body. And after,
people know,
having so much experience looking at markets, there's just certain things that you can kind of sense. And I always tell that to people that want to come into crypto. I think this is just so key, is crypto is very, very, very good for teaching people, because it never stops trading. If you're trying to learn how to trade the traditional markets, you only really get that real trading for those 6 hours in the day, from the market open to the market close. So that's the only time that you get real human psychology trading experience. And if you have a normal job, it's hard to learn, right? Because most of the time the jobs that you work are during that 6 period of the market open. But crypto, it's 24/7, baby. You can come home at 2 in the morning and learn some technical analysis. You can come home and open a trade at 3 and 4 in the morning and capitalize on the Asian markets and that sort of thing. And
on a holiday,
and that's why I love crypto, and I will always want to push people towards crypto, because they can learn so much more, so much faster. Now, there are some things when it comes to like shorting the traditional markets, when it comes to shorting crypto. You can short crypto anytime you want, at any moment. It doesn't really matter. Traditional markets is a little bit harder. The way that I learned shorting is shorts were really crowded sometimes. And so you had to kind of get shares to short. Your brokerage actually had to locate them for you. And sometimes the good plays, you couldn't find shares to short because everybody had already had better timing locates and that sort of stuff. But I will say that crypto just offers a quicker learning curve, in my opinion.
I have to agree with you on that. And let me ask you this. So also too, when you look at regulations, because you brought that up earlier, we've seen the space mature. We've seen a lot of things going on. I say mature in a lot of ways, and in some ways go backwards, some things that have happened. But in particular to regulators, what is your view on how the regulation, and we'll say, in America, we'll start with that, but what do you see? Maybe what do you want to see, but what are you seeing, let's say in the next 1, 3 to 5 year time frame, regulation in regard to crypto and to Bitcoin?
Yeah, again, a great question. I would hope that they would try and, just make crypto just easier access for people, right? Easier for understand. I think that they're doing that. They're on the route to it, but you see everything kind of going on with Gary Gensler and just the way that they haven't really made any regulations so far, but they still get people in trouble. And they're like, well, we haven't made any regulations for this, so we're still going to take you, we're still going to get, slap you with a fine or whatever. So I just hope that there's a little bit more clarity when it comes to crypto in the future. But I don't know, man. It could take time too, and I've said this for a while, that the regulation will come, but when it comes, it's not going to be what people want it to be. It's going to be, everybody wants Bitcoin for decentralization, that not having to worry about money being at the banks or being at these exchanges, that sort of thing. So it's a very hard topic to kind of tackle. And so, as far as the people that are making these rules, more power to them, because I definitely wouldn't want to be the person making these rules. You always have to look at it from two perspectives. I think that's in life what people fail at the most, is they only look at their perspective. There's probably things going on in the SEC when it comes to crypto that no one knows about, and everybody's just kind of speculating that they hate crypto and they don't want to do that. Well, they could be working on it behind scenes. We don't know. I mean, some people, work there and have kind of leaked some information. But at the end of the day, I just want it to be a little bit more clear cut on what needs to happen within crypto, what's a security, what's not. And, then we can kind of go forward from there. And I also think that they should, make it a little bit better for, us to use some of these types of exchanges, because it does not make sense for them to offer these gambling casino exchanges to the United States, but we can't use, an exchange with derivatives. It's just kind of crazy to me. It's just so like counterintuitive, counterproductive. There's just no way for us to kind of win, in my opinion. And then, you see like stuff like FTX doesn't really help, right? These big exchanges going up and going bankrupt, it doesn't help anything. Celsius, Three Arrows Capital. But, I just hope that everybody can kind of come together and embrace crypto, because crypto is, in my opinion, one of the next big transfers of wealth within the next 10 years. I truly, truly believe that. And if you get into crypto and you start studying Bitcoin and what it is, and about economics and about finances, that this is where you need to be building.
Absolutely. Absolutely. I agree with you on that. And one final crypto question or Bitcoin question. The halving's coming up, in about a year from now, a little bit under. Yeah. What do you want to, because, some people like to make the price predictions. Some people don't. Some people like to give ranges. Some people want to say, I have no idea. Do you want to look at an all-time high for Bitcoin, or A, do you think it surpasses all-time high? And B, would you want to do a range, let's say, from now till the end of December of 2024?
Yeah, I really think it ranges. I don't think that we break all-time highs, but I think the halving is going to help. I think on one of my high time frame charts, I had like the golden pocket target of like around 49 to 50K is like my high top out for this year. And then I think that we see a little bit of downside. Some, I don't know if it's going to be significant downside, but I do think that it kind of stops around 50K, and then we, kind of go lower, and then we eventually will have, that big move for the next cycle up into the 6-figure area. And, again, it doesn't, to me, I always say this too, to me, it does not matter the time frame of when Bitcoin is going to go higher. I think people will still, to this day, people will tell me that Bitcoin will fail. And I look at them and I normally just say, it doesn't matter to me. I don't care if Bitcoin goes to 0. I don't care if Bitcoin goes to 250K. It has already changed my life for the better. And so I'm just moving forward and just making sure that, I'm trading Bitcoin and Ethereum, and I know these environments and I know how to trade them. And obviously teach some of the VIP members that I have over in my Telegram.
Nice. Well, I like that. When you're not working and stuff, what sort of hobbies do you have?
Golf. I love golf, man. Golf's my thing.
So when you're shooting golf, what's your best shot?
It just depends. I mean, really, I'm like a fairway guy. I don't really hit the driver very well, but if I can get, in a good place for the fairway, I can hit like my 5, 6, 7 iron pretty well to kind of like either get on the green or get close. So that's normally that middle zone is my favorite. Nice.
And what's your favorite food, or what is your favorite food? You going out to eat? What are you eating?
Favorite food is probably Mexican food, man. Like probably just coming from New Mexico and where I was raised, that cultural food of like, tacos and taquitos and, burritos, that sort of thing. That's definitely my home.
Can't go wrong with that. All right. Well, look, let me ask, so for the audience to find you, what is your Telegram group? Best way to locate you on Telegram and Twitter?
Yeah. So Twitter is Castillo Trading, and all I offer is a free. It's free. Everything I do is free. I never charge anybody. It's a free Telegram group. If you want access to it, all you have to do is DM me on Twitter, and I can get you access. Very, very simple.
Awesome. Well, look, anytime somebody's providing content to me, that's the best thing you can do in the space to give back. So very, very cool.
Absolutely. Appreciate that, man. Appreciate that. You give back as well. So appreciate you as well.
I appreciate that. Definitely trying. Look, I appreciate you coming on the latest episode of the Big Dawg Crypto Podcast. Thank you so much.
Appreciate it, man. You have a good one.
You've been listening to the Big Dawg Crypto Podcast. Follow on Twitter at WoofBigDawg. Woof, Big DAWG. And run faster than the competition. Woof, woof.